Hello and welcome to the DBS ID Checker training by the MyTrust. The following will ensure that you have all the resources and knowledge needed to check original ID documentation to establish the true likeness of the applicant. If you have any questions about any of the content, please contact Anna Pascu or Charlotte Muffet at the MyTrust before sending in any completed DBS forms. So what is DBS and what are the applications for? The Disclosure and Barring Service replaces the CRB, meaning that there is only one organisation dealing with checks and barring decisions. Like the CRB check, the DBS check gives details of a person's convictions, plus any cautions, reprimands or warnings held in England and Wales. The checks help safeguard vulnerable groups and children from people who work or volunteer with them and who could pose a risk of harm. Why does identification need to be verified? So the person going through a DBS check, or the applicant, must give their employer or ID checker original documents and not copies to prove their identity. This is to ensure that the true identity of the applicant has been established so that an accurate check can be processed. The form itself is made up of 4 pages. At the top of the front page, you will find a return address, although all forms should be sealed in an envelope, and the form reference number. This form reference number must be noted on the ID checker checklist coming up later in the webinar. It's so that we are able to trace your form should we need to. The front page contains instructions on how to fill out the form. Although I will be going through those here, it's important that the applicant takes their time to read them. Pages 2 and 3 are for the applicant to fill out themselves. It is about their personal information, and there is also a chance to make a criminal record declaration at the bottom of page 3. Page 4 is for the ID checker, MyTrust and DBS only. In order to complete the form accurately, you must use black ink throughout, use capital letters, complete all sections marked in yellow. If you do not, your form will be returned and processed, and this will delay the application. Write clearly and insert only one character in each box. Put a line through a mistake and correct it to the right. Mark choices in the box with a cross. Applicants must keep their signatures within the box provided. Provide all addresses where the applicant has lived in the last 5 years. If the applicant has lived overseas within this period, please include these addresses as well. The applicant must not write over the edges of each box, place stamps or stickers on the form, staple anything to the form, use correction fluid, or strike out a section that's not applicable. Just leave it blank. So page 2 and section A is the applicant's details. The applicant must fill this out themselves. So it starts with title, surname, forename, and whether the applicant has been known by any other names. As you can see, these 4 questions are in yellow, meaning that they are mandatory. If the applicant has been known by any other names, they must complete A5 to 13 as appropriate. If not, they can go straight to A14, which is date of birth, which is also mandatory. 15, gender. 16, place of birth town. 17, place of birth country. Although 18 and 19 aren't mandatory as they aren't in yellow, it is helpful if the applicant could fill out their contact details so that we are able to get hold of them should we need to. Number 20 is also mandatory. So do you have a national insurance number? And if the answer is yes, they must complete A21 and note down their insurance number. Same for 22, whether the applicant holds a valid UK driving licence. If yes, they must complete A23. A24 is also mandatory. Do you hold a valid passport? If yes, they must complete A25, A26 and A27. Number 30 is also mandatory. Do you have a Scottish vetting and barring number? If the answer is yes, they must complete A31. On to page 3 of the form is about the applicant's current address. 32 is mandatory, that's their address, and 33 is mandatory also, their town or city. 35, UK postcode is mandatory, as is 36, their country. 37, at address since. Please note when filling in dates that some boxes ask for day, month and year, and some ask just for month and year. So the applicant must provide all addresses that they've lived in the last 5 years. So there must be no gaps in dates, but overlapping dates are acceptable. If they must use a continuation sheet, they can download this from gov.uk/DBS or ask Anna or Charlotte to send them one. So if the applicant has lived at more than one address in the past 5 years, they must go on to complete this section in reverse chronological order. So this is their current address, this is their most recent address before that, and this is their most recent address before that. If they still haven't got their full address history of the last 5 years, they should complete a continuation sheet, filling out the form reference number at the top, ensuring that their title, surname, forenames and date of birth are on here as well. At the bottom of page 3 is the declaration by the applicant. This is where they have the chance to declare any convictions, cautions, reprimands or final warning. It's a yes or a no tick box. They must then sign the box and date their signature in the bottom here. So on to the identification checking. So at the top of the ID checklist form, please ensure that the applicant's name matches the name on the DBS form and that the form reference number is noted also. On the back of the ID check-in checklist, the applicant must sign, print and date. This is to ensure that they have understood that although their personal information is being disclosed, it is only for the use of the DBS service to ensure a valid check. For ID checkers, these are your guidance notes. Please read through them carefully. These can be used to advise applicants of which pieces of information you will need to see in order to establish their true identity before returning the form back to us. There are 3 routes that can be used when checking ID. So this is route 1, route 2, and route 3, which is only to be used in exceptional circumstances. So route 1, can the applicant produce any document from group 1? Yes. They then must produce 2 more documents from group 1, 2A or 2B. Can the applicant, so this is for route 2, can the applicant produce a document from group 2? If they can, that's great. They then must provide a further 2 documents from group 2A and 2B. For the purpose of this webinar, the example applicant has brought me 3 ID documents from Group 1. They've brought their passport, so that's from Group 1, and they then brought me their driving licence, which is in Group 1 and Group 2A, and they've brought me a bank statement, which is in Group 2B. So the information requested in the table is to ensure that you are happy that the ID is sufficient to make a DBS application. There are 3 groups of ID which relate to the routes, and some have an asterisk. So it explains the asterisk at the top. If it's denoted with 1 asterisk, it means that the document cannot be older than 3 months old. If it's denoted with 2 asterisks, it means the documentation cannot be older than 12 months. So when completing the ID check, tick the box to indicate the type of ID that has been checked, and then continue to fill out the rest of the information relating to that ID. So with this example applicant, I will tick that they have brought in a passport. I will then fill in the country of issue, passport number, and the expiry date. I will then tick that they have provided a current driving licence photo card. I will continue to fill out the country of issue, licence number, and the valid from date. And if they've brought me a bank statement, I will tick this. Note down the provider of the bank statement as well as the statement date. So once I have checked the ID and I'm happy that I have 3 lots of identification, I then have to revisit page number 2 of the application form and ensure that I am happy that I have been able to verify the applicant's details. So there is a small box on the right-hand side of page 2 for registered body use only. As you are the trained ID checker, you are the registered body and have authority to complete this section. You are being asked whether certain personal details have been verified by yourself. So A1 to 3, if you revisit the form, this is asking for the current name and whether that can be verified. So this will have appeared on the passport or the driving licence or the birth certificate of the applicant. And if you're confident that you can verify their current name, put a cross in the box. A14 is asking you to verify date of birth. Again, this should appear on the passport, driver's licence, birth certificate. If you are happy that you have verified this, then put a cross in that box. A21 is asking you to verify their national insurance number. It may be the case that the applicant has filled out this section but does not have proof to show you. So if you have not had sight of official documentation, i.e. the national insurance number card or a P45, do not verify A21. If you have seen either of those documentations and you are confident that that is their national insurance number, you may verify that. A23 is asking whether you can verify if you have seen the applicant's driver's licence. You may have seen this as part of the ID checking for the DBS application. If you haven't, however, and you are unable to verify their driving licence number, then do not check that box. This is the same for A25, which is passport number. If you have seen the passport number and you are confident that you can verify, then cross the box. If you have not, then do not cross the box. So back to page 3, you have one more verification to do here. You need to verify the current address of the applicant. So you may be able to verify this from a photocard driving licence or a bill or a documentation from the local council or government. Once you have verified those, you must turn to the back page, where you will need to fill out your full name and declare that you have established the true identity of the applicant. You must then ensure that position applied for is filled in, for example, youth support worker. On that second line in position applied for, you must write child and adult workforce. So position applied for goes here. So for example, youth support worker, and underneath adult and child workforce. Underneath that, you then are going to write the organisation name. So the organisation that the DBS will be provided to. You must then go on to establish what kind of DBS check you would like for your organisation. So the level of DBS you'd like enhanced. Are you entitled to know whether the applicant is barred from working with children? Yes. Are you entitled to know whether the applicant is barred from working with adults? Yes. Does this position involve working with children or adults at the applicant's home address? That depends on the role. Onto the application type. Cross if the application is for a new post holder. So if someone is coming in from outside of the organisation and they are taking a new post. If it's for an existing post holder, so someone who hasn't been checked before but has been working within the organisation for a while. And if the application is for an existing post holder who's being rechecked. 68. Is this application for a free of charge volunteer? So the DBS service will provide free DBS checks to free of charge volunteers. However, there will be a cost as the My Trust is acting on behalf of your organisation to process that. That is where your role ends as far as the DBS application form goes. This should not be completed by you. This is for use by the My Trust and the DBS service. So a list of things to watch out for. So section A 1 to 4, if the applicant has been known by a different name, they must ensure the name is entered in full again, i.e. with first and middle names. Section A 18 to 19, ensure that one of these is filled out. So although the details are not mandatory, it's easier to get hold of the applicant should there be an issue with the application. A20 to 31, it's important that if yes is selected for any of these questions, that full information is then provided. Section B 32 to 37, information about current address must be provided in full, included postcode, country and dates. Section B, 38 to 43. There is space for 2 past addresses. If the applicant's time at these addresses does not total 5 years, a continuation sheet must be completed and put inside the DBS application form and then returned to us. Section E, 55 to 57. The applicant must sign the declaration box provided after answering E55 and the signature must be dated. Section W, 58 to 59. This is for the ID checker to confirm their name and that they have accurately established the true identity of the applicant. Section Y. This is just for the team at the MyTrust to act as counter-signatories for the applicant before sending to the DBS application to be processed and the certificate to be issued. And Section Z is for DBS only. So that is the end of our identity checking webinar. Just some additional information on the DBS certificates themselves. The DBS certificates are personal property to the applicant and therefore the organisation can ask for the DBS number and can ask to have sight of the certificate. However, you are not entitled to have a copy of the certificate or to keep the certificate. It is the personal property of the applicant. Again, if there are any questions about this ID checker webinar, please contact Anna Pascu or Charlotte Muffet at the MyTrust. Phone number is 01634 959090.